Welcome to my weekly podcast. Later That Same Life. New episodes pop every Thursday, wherever you get your podcast content. Also on my YouTube channel. Later That Same Life. Topics, discussions, stories from our lives.
Season 6, Chapter 3.
Back to the office.
In the spring of 2020, as we began to take COVID seriously, it was estimated that up to 40% of the workforce could plausibly work from home. Of those who could, most did. Over the next 2 years, we saw employed society change. Work from home. The home office, which previously may have been just a laptop on the dining room table, was now a dedicated workspace, perhaps a redecorated spare room. In the meantime, food, furniture, and fun was delivered to our homes. Kids, normally not remotely interested in learning, were trying to learn remotely. The whole damn family was in the house all the time. We watched the rise of Amazon, Zoom, Netflix, et al. And before all of this, we spent our money almost equally on goods and services. But now COVID. Services were closed or otherwise unavailable. We ordered more goods. So much so, we clogged the supply chain. Those expensive downtown condos that people overspent on just to be close to work were being sold and abandoned. I can work from home, and I can be anywhere. Why don't I just buy a cheaper place, far from the madding crowd? Suddenly, those cheap, wide-open spaces began to cost a lot more. And those expensive downtown condos were going for a song. Topsy-turvy world. Downtown actually began to look a lot different. A lot of places were boarded up, or newspaper on the windows. Who says we still don't need newspapers? No one, hardly anyone, is downtown anymore. Well, more people were living on the streets, more encampments in public parks. That, of course, only partially related to the pandemic. One person's spending is another person's income. And when you commute to a workplace every day, you ride transit, or you drive a car and pay for parking. You stop for a coffee. You check out a newsstand. Occasionally you may go out for lunch, drinks after work. Most of that dried up. Around 40% of the workforce was at home. That had to make a difference. And it did. And how about those of us sitting at home in front of a screen, wearing a crisp blue dress shirt, while barefoot with green basketball shorts? Okay, that was me. I actually did that. Many times. How did we feel about not going to another place just to work? I don't have hard stats on that, but I think most of us really took to it. I'll tell you why I think that in a moment. Anecdotally, it seemed split. Some people really enjoyed working from home. Others kind of missed being at a designated workplace among people. And remember, for a long time and off and on, those of us who could were not just not going to work. We weren't really going anyplace else either. That added to the feelings of isolation. Some people missed the office, the impersonal cubicles, the obnoxious coworkers, the messy staff kitchen with the sign that says your mom doesn't work here, clean up after yourself, the toxic, foul-smelling staff fridge, the birthday card going around the office, hey, cake at 3 o'clock, so on and so forth. Many people really missed that. Many did not. There were a good number of companies who actually said, we'll never have an office ever again. We will always work remotely. Rather than pay for expensive, centrally located office space, we'll instead rent a meeting room occasionally if we really have to get together. Now, where is that Zoom link? This was going to be the new normal. And in fact, there is a new normal. But now, lo and behold, in 2022, there is a call to get back to the office. It began quietly, with various companies across various industries working on a strategy to get people back to the office. Then in July, Elon Musk told his Tesla executives that remote working was over. Get back to the office now, or else. Or else what? Or else find a new employer. This really got the back to the office discussion going because, well, it's Elon Musk. Elon Musk is good at two things: making money and making headlines. I've said this before, I'll say it again. We have to stop giving people credit for smarts just because somehow they got rich. Just because Elon Musk is the richest man in the world, how does this give him any expertise in areas like politics, social media, or work-life balance? Elon constantly pulls work marathons, sleeps in the office. I guess that's the price you pay if you want to control the flow of billions of dollars. But for the employees, many of them enjoyed working from home. So here's why I think that most people enjoyed working from home. Almost 3/4 of those recently surveyed asked about going back to the office. They said they preferred a hybrid model. A hybrid model implies the best of both worlds: going into the office only a couple of days a week or when necessary, and having the option to work remotely. It's called flexibility. People love the flexibility. 72% said they'd prefer a hybrid model of employment, which tells me they enjoyed being able to work from home. By the way, the remaining 28%, they're split almost evenly. Half of them want office full-time and the other half home only. Several surveys I've seen also seem to reach this similar conclusion. By and large, it's the executives who want to be in the office all work week. The people who want to work from home or some sort of hybrid models, they are mostly the employees. Maybe it's this king-queen kind of complex. The executrons want to sit on their executive thrones and be able to behold their servants. Another survey found that most executives are planning return-to-work strategies without consulting the employees. And let me pause here to point out again, we're talking about approximately 40% of the workforce here. The majority, the 60%, didn't have the option to work from home. They had to be out there every workday, behind the cash register, behind the wheel of the truck, at the factory drill press, those who serve and protect and so forth. They had to be out there every day.
Hello, this is Constable Dave of 35 Division. I'll be working from home today. If you could ask all criminals to come to my home office, I will cuff them, read them their rights, arrest them and process them here, and then UPS them to the jail.
But we do have a major chunk of the workforce, 40%, who can and did affect major change to the dynamic of employment. A recent survey in Canada, about 1/3 of those that said if they were called back to the office full-time, they would go back, but they would immediately start looking for another job. About 1/4 of respondents said if they were called back to the office full-time, they would quit immediately. So let me see, quick math, 1/3 is 33, 1/4 is 25, so that's 58% of the people not interested in going back to the office full-time. Corporate employers have to understand this, and they have to start modifying their practices. Can't just go back to the old days. That was then. This is now. Why the reluctance to go back? Well, we mostly just talked about it. People enjoyed working from home. It was less expensive. There was more time. You felt more in control. And many people have cited that they don't like what's become of downtown. They no longer feel safe there, especially lately. And lastly, going back to the office would mean an increased chance of catching COVID. A lot of this can be compacted into one phrase. As mentioned earlier, work-life balance. It's not a new phrase by any means, but has really come into its own in these last 2 years. Recently, I heard a news story about a union representing transit workers. They were going to be discussing the new contract, and the union said that on their agenda were salaries, working conditions, and work-life balance. They actually cited it as an item that would be negotiated on a contract. I really wonder what that would look like. I suppose the example we could use is the health system recently. Nurses, they had forced overtime, days off and vacations canceled, etc. I guess at some point employers must not be allowed to do that according to a contract. Work-life balance. For many of us, this work-life balance has been more of a conceptual discussion. Years ago, I've been in the boss's office where he lectured on the importance of balancing your work life and your personal life. And then the very next day, you are asked to stay late for the meeting, even though you already promised that you'd be at your kid's recital. But you know that if you stand up and say anything, your boss isn't going to commend you on your ability for work-life balance. He'll think you're not a dedicated employee. So what do? You miss the recital, you go to the meeting, and then you smile and nod during the next work-life balance lecture. During my employment career, work-life balance was for losers. That was the real corporate credo. The guys at the top and the wannabes, the go-getters, they were there first thing in the morning, and they were still there when you left at night. They were almost all work and no play. And when they played for work. It's why the game of golf was invented. Just a way to have meetings and make deals away from the office. The last couple of generations have called BS on that and want a true work-life balance. I actually don't care for the phrase myself. It implies that work and life are two entirely different things. Maybe it's just semantics and I'm picking it apart. I know, but words matter. Work, life. What about your life's work or your work life, as opposed to your home life or your personal life? Work life, home life balance? Or maybe we should even just flip it. Life, work balance. At least put the word life first, right? I mean, what do people say when you work all the time? Hey, get a life. He works all the time. He has no life. Whatever. I guess it's just a phrase and we all know what it means. Work-life balance is important. Yeah, let's try and have that. Does working from home give us that? I know that for a lot of people, working from home actually meant they worked more. It became more difficult to separate work from home because it all happened within the same few square feet. Now that was already going on with the invention of the laptop and the smartphone. Texts and emails meant we were chained to the office, so much so that over the last decade, some companies had to make rules about that kind of thing. When you could send after-hour emails and messages. Of course, the go-getters found a go-around on that. They would write their 50 emails at 11 o'clock at night, but instead of hitting send, they would schedule them to send later. So by the time you, Mr. and Ms. Work-Life Balance, got to work at 8 o'clock the next morning, you already had 50 emails waiting for you. Bastards. I was lucky in my life because wherever I lived, I was almost always able to set up a corner or a spare room as a home office. I would like to say that I foresaw the future, but really I was influenced by growing up watching TV, where Dad always had a den. My dad didn't have a den. My dad had a garage. I always wanted a den. Not a man cave, a den. That would be where Dad had his books and papers and a desk. The result was I almost always had a home office and learned early the discipline to mentally and psychologically separate that space from the rest of my home. Even now, when I work from home, I know that when I walk out of my office, I'm leaving work. Here is work. Here is home. And what a short commute. After a hard day's work, I can be home in less than 10 steps, depending on traffic. Also, my office kitchen is the same as my home kitchen. It's the same room. And I always clean up after myself because, my mother doesn't work here. Not everyone can do that on their own. Some people need that physical distance, travel somewhere to an office, work, then travel again. Home at last. Over the last couple of years, more and more people learned that discipline, at least tried to. This is work, this is home. Same few walls, but they became better at making the distinction. What has helped that is the fact that the world is opening up. Many of us can still work from home, but at least now we can go out for lunch or drinks after 5 or a show on the weekend. So it is likely that a return to the office is upon us. Now, if you work for a company in, say, New York City or Toronto, but you move to the Bahamas, well, I guess now if you're called back, you're going to have to work out that new commute. Not everyone will be called back, and of course, not all the time. I really do see a hybrid model working. That will be the new normal. And if that somehow helps to even up your work-life balance, well, good. Good for you. There is more than one sociologist job expert who said that if you're a young person with a job, get back to the office as soon as you can. It is the newer, younger employees who will benefit most right now by a return to the office. They need to build real social and business interpersonal relationships with bosses and mentors. Relationships that just couldn't be built as strongly on Zoom. That is the general advice. Young people, get back to the office. When I would talk to school classes about media, someone would always ask about the key to success in my business, and I would say it's the same as any job. Attendance. Good attendance. The bosses like to see asses in the chairs every day. Some of that has changed, obviously, with work from home and all. But again, if you're not an established good attendee, back to the office is the prevailing advice. There used to be this other axiom when it came to being employed and getting ahead. And it goes, you don't need to work harder, you need to work smarter. I guess that's still true. Perhaps now we can count on all of our smart devices. Another one of those corporate credos, don't work harder, work smarter. Well, that guy's working really hard. Yeah, because he's an idiot. By the way, speaking of smart devices, I've got this new electronic, digitally operated elevator device. It allows me to get food from the first floor up to the second floor. It's the world's first smart dumbwaiter. Yeah, maybe that joke needs work. Certainly has no life. As part of the 40%, I would like to express my thanks at this point to the other 60% who have been there every day. Thank you for your service, and thanks for delivering the goods. I'm sorry that Galen Weston Jr. discontinued your hero pay, the cheap a-hole. I guess the president's choice was more money for him. But anyway, thank you. And for the 100%, for all of us, may we all achieve the work-life balance. Happy scales to you until we meet again. Interesting that with all this talk about how to achieve the balance, most of the discussion has centered around work. Hey, work-life balance. There's two parts to this. And the discussion around work comes with the notion that work-life balance is related to real estate and location. Work-life balance is a mental state, is it not? Everyone keeps talking about the work. On the other hand, there is no real shortage of people who are willing to give you advice about life. I often get life advice from a mentor I've known for decades. Our relationship has changed over the years, but lately, whenever we get together, it instantly feels like we've never been apart. Of course, I'm talking about TV. My mentor, TV's life advice. What to do when not working. Number 1, apparently, stream your boat gently down the road. Binge your content. Secondly, become a weekend warrior. Get a 4-wheel drive vehicle and go ravage nature. Number 3, and this applies mostly to Ontario, do online gambling. Now available thanks to our leader, Doogie Ford. And lastly, buy insurance. Man, there are countless people telling me to buy insurance. I can be approved on the spot. No medical exam is necessary. Insurance. Because something may happen. You should be prepared. In closing, we think of work-life balance as our personal correct amount on both sides so that we are able to efficiently carry the load. But maybe work-life balance means that we are all trying to balance on the tightrope that is life. And if we don't get it right, we will free fall to our demise. Gee, I hope not. Although, if that happens, I do have the insurance.
Later That Same Life is written, voiced, and produced by Larry Fedoruk. LarryFedoruk37@gmail.com. Subscribe to Larry's podcast YouTube channel. Get automatic notifications with each new episode.